Welcome to everybody that's listening to this podcast, and we are so excited and honored to have Bruce and Mabel here with us. And they were missionaries with OMS, and they served the Lord in Ecuador and Mozambique. So today, in this list of episodes, we'll get to hear their story just from the start. And yes, I just want to welcome you on. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's a great privilege to be here. I believe that my life with the Lord started when I was quite small. My mother had joined a new Nazarene church that was in the community of Galion, Ohio, where I was born. I have an older brother and a younger sister. But when I was 4 years old, I had ruptured appendix. And the doctors didn't think I would be alive for just maybe a few more hours. I had a temperature of 108. And my mom called the young Nazarene pastor to the hospital, and he prayed with me. And obviously, God answered prayer. And I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I had to learn to walk all over again.
Wow.
And the pastor's wife told my mother later on that God had given me my life a second time for a purpose. And it would be interesting to see what that purpose would be. Our home was divided as far as the faith is concerned. My father believed that science had disproved the Bible. And very soon my mom stopped going to church, but she sent me and my brother to the church for Sunday school. But at the age of 12, I stopped going and my brother had stopped. So entered the teenage years, very confused. I loved sports. I loved the farm that we lived on. And finally the farm won out, and we had a dairy farm of 85 cows and all the things that go with that. But then when I was 28 years old, I was invited to go to a church. And I went to that church. It was a small rural church. And I was in a Sunday school class, and the teacher read a question from Sunday school material. He said, "Why didn't Jesus fight back when he was being crucified?" And nobody answered the question, and of course I couldn't answer it. And I thought about that question for 6 weeks, and this was early November of 1966. And on the 22nd of December that year, I was outside feeding cattle. It was a very cold, snowy, wintry day. And the answer to that question came to me. The reason Jesus didn't fight back was because he loved the people who were crucifying him. And it seemed to me that if he loved those people, he loved me. He died for their sins, he died for mine. And in that moment, when I believed that Jesus loved me and died for my sins, the Lord spoke to me, and I would say today, after many years, by the Holy Spirit, and said, "Go, study the Bible, teach it to other people. It will answer every problem in the world." That got my life set on the right course, and I've been following those words ever since, Debbie.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
I want to tell about your trajectory. It's
Yes,
quite
please.
different than mine.
Yes, please.
Well, my life is very different from Bruce's because we grew up on different continents. But anyway, as a child, I went to Sunday school, learned all the hymns and things that they wanted
The
us
Church
to
of Ireland, right?
Yes, and so then I think the first time that I was made very conscious of God's love was through a book that I read called The Beautiful Possibility. I read that book, and I was 12 at that time, and it really was the first time that I really could hear God speaking, but it didn't change my life. I didn't know what to do.
But it's interesting, Mabel, as you told me, that book was given to your father as a prize for Sunday school back when he was a child.
Wow.
It's very, very interesting.
So Well, the book, yes, it made a great impact on my life, but I still felt confused at times, and many times I wouldn't be able to answer questions or anything because I just didn't know. But anyway, but I got through the teenage years, started to work, and the thing about it was that I had actually, before I was 18, I had 3 jobs, worked for 3 places. I just, as soon as I could, do the things that needed to be done, and all, I would just need to get another job because I got bored. And so, anyway, the Lord was wonderful because when I became a Christian when I was 18 years old, and the way that came about was I had some friends, and there was a campaign in Belfast in the Wellington Hall, and they said, would you go with us just for the ride, because I hadn't made any profession of faith or anything. And it was at that meeting, it was quite an amazing meeting, because there were lines of people waiting to get in, and they're all singing, and the songs they were singing were different from the ones I knew, but they were so happy and so joyful and everything. And the man who spoke, he was actually an American, and he talked about the thing that he brought out was John 3:16, and told us that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And that he talked on that verse, and before he even finished his message, I had made my decision, and that was to follow Jesus. And then sang that chorus.
Decided to follow Jesus, right?
And so he was at the end of the meeting, you could go forward, and so I did do that. And the lady who counseled me, she gave me some little booklets and things which were amazingly needful, just to know exactly what it was that I had made my commitment to.
Yeah.
So,
wow, amazing.
But was that the first American to have influence in your life?
Probably.
But it wouldn't be the only one.
Mabel's 3 jobs, she couldn't go on to school beyond 15 because the high school would have been in Portadown. It had been a long trip on a bus, so she couldn't do it. So she started work in a shoe store, right?
No, first was the Tyrone Courier.
Oh, the Tyrone Courier, right. And you took in the order to put in to sell things.
Yes.
And then where did you go?
And that was the boot, McManus Boots.
Oh, that's where you sold the shoes. First the newspaper and the shoes.
In the office, I was in the office.
And then it was the linen mills.
Stevenson's.
And it was those friends, some friends from there, that invited you to go to the campaign. So it was work friends talking about things, that they invited Mabel to go to Belfast to that campaign. So God was at work through all of that in Mabel's life.
Yes, that's amazing. And just as you say, like all those little things that God placed and put together to bring that is just so beautiful to hear. And so you are from Mabel, you grew up in Portadown then, yes?
No, Dungannon.
Oh, Dungannon. Okay, sorry. So you grew up in Dungannon, and then Bruce, where did you grow up again? Sorry.
In Galion, Ohio.
Galion, Ohio. Okay.
On a farm there, and Mabel grew up on a farm too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Near Castle Caulfield there, near Dungannon, right.
Wow. So similar stories. I mean, just such vast different places, but the same Lord working and bringing about his salvation, which is just so amazing to hear. So, just to help kind of my brain piece things together. So you came to faith, Bruce, when you were 28, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And Mabel, you came to faith when you were 18 at this event, at this conference, right?
Yes, that's right.
Amazing,
Yes.
amazing. And so I would just love to hear how God worked through your lives in those early stages of just knowing him and loving him. And then how did you go from deciding to follow Jesus to then serving him on the mission field? I'd just love to hear that.
Yeah, I think, Mabel, you should start because you became a Christian about 9 years before I did.
She had a head start.
And so that you were just ready to go to Ecuador, but that was a very important 9 years of preparation for it.
Yes, it was. And, when God saved me, everything changed in my life. It was just an amazing experience. And the village that we lived close to, they had some special meetings, and so we went along. And when that was over, we decided we would start a youth group. Because
who was that? Who was with you?
Well, there was George and
your sister Evelyn?
My sister Evelyn and Sheila.
Evelyn became a Christian within, 3 months after you did? That was her sister, who's just a year younger.
Wow.
Right.
So, so we started the youth meeting, and then we were given Sunday school classes to teach. And so I thought life was great, and so it was, because we were so happy that all these things were happening around us, and God was very good to us, and he's opening doors. And but I never thought of being a missionary, never got.
What about Samuel's prayer meeting?
Yeah, there was a prayer meeting in the village, and it was led by a man called Samuel, and he suddenly died with a tumor in the brain. And so I went to console his wife, and I told her, that she said, Samuel prayed for you, and I said, yeah, I know. She said, but you didn't know what he prayed. He prayed that you would go to the mission field.
And this was after the prayer meeting.
Yeah.
Wow.
He would pray for Mabel that she would, like she said, go
home, and he would go upstairs and he would pray for me. So that was a great experience to hear that. And so as far as then I became interested in everything that was happening, and there was a missionary came to our little prayer group, and he was from India, and I was very, very touched by what he had.
That was Wesley Duell.
No,
it wasn't Wesley.
No, it was I don't know his name actually, but he had a good message.
Was he with OMS? Or?
No, he wasn't with
He
OMS.
was another mission. Okay.
We didn't know anything but OMS at that time.
Wow.
So, that was to know that there's someone praying for you specifically. And where I worked, there were a number of Christian people. And one day, one of the guys that worked there, he was walking past my desk, and he said, when are you going to go to Bible college? And I said, what do you mean? I said, and so I began to think about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that God was calling indeed. And so it was very hard, but it was in the office, that same office, that I was willing to give my life for missionary work.
Wow. Wow. So just to kind of summarize it in my head. So you started like a youth gathering, and there was prayer meetings, and at the house of this man named Samuel, right?
Well, the prayer meetings weren't at his house.
Okay.
He would go home from the
Okay. All right. And he would pray for you and pray that you would go into missions, right?
That's exactly right.
Amazing. And then at work, your colleagues were encouraging you to go to Bible school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so amazing. And then from then on?
Well, from then on, I went to Bible College, the Emmanuel Bible College in Birkenhead, England, and really had wonderful experiences there. It was a great time in my life, and I'm so thankful.
And there were 2 courses. Yeah. Remember, they had a course for pastors and a course for missionaries, and you were in that missionary stream.
Yeah, right. That was right. It was very good, very wonderful time. When I was there at the Emmanuel Bible College, they get what do you call it?
Magazines and things from other missions all over the place.
So I always got them and would read them. This one magazine was on Ecuador, and it was quite amazing because the lady that wrote this article, of course, she's no longer.
Eileen House, right?
No, it wasn't Eileen. That was Nobe.
Oh, Nobe Pope.
Nobe Pope. She was a missionary in Saraguro, and she wrote this article, and I was so touched by it, and I began to think more about what God had called me. I knew that, but I wasn't sure where, and so I would do all this reading to see if I could find out anything that would help me. And somebody told me that there was a missionary from Ecuador, and she was coming to Emmanuel Bible College to just talk, I think. So I met her, and I had a wonderful talk with her. She had worked in Saraguro. Sadly, she didn't live very long. She had cancer.
Is that Greta Anderson?
Greta Anderson.
Right.
And so, but it was a good step forward for me because I learned a lot of things from Greta. And finishing Bible College, I went down to London because I wanted to do some medical training. And so I was able to go to the Missionary School of Medicine and take their 1-year course, and that was invaluable in Ecuador. So,
well, then after you graduated from that, you did the Summer Institute of Linguistics for language training, and I think that really helped Mabel to understand language in a great way. And of course, when she went to language school, then her Spanish, I never heard Mabel make a mistake in Spanish until we went to Mozambique and had to learn Portuguese. And even in Ecuador, the Ecuadorians couldn't tell which part of the country she was from.
Wow.
So all of that went together very, very well. And how did you actually become a missionary with OMS? You had to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
How did
well after I came back from what was I doing? Oh, the Institute of Linguistics. I started thinking. I had met these OMS people, and so I'm just trying to.
Well, OMS was very close to Emmanuel Bible College.
Yes, in Manchester.
Yeah, Stanley Banks and the Dungeons of and others in OMS. They were friends. They knew each other.
So now the big thing for me was to raise support, and it was quite an amazing thing how God opened doors. I met people I'd never thought that I would meet in my lifetime, and it was just a joy to do this, getting the funds in, and meeting people, getting prayer support. All those are so important. And so I started that, and I finished in 4 months and was ready to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, it was quite a lot involved there. Yeah. She had applied to OMS, and then I think you and Evelyn had met Wesley Duell one time earlier, but then you met him that summer, around September, and he was wondering why Mabel hadn't been accepted yet. So she got her letter of acceptance from the president, Dr. Eugene Ernie, in October then of 1965. And that was a very important. We still have that letter, actually. Wow. And from then on, Mabel has been a member of OMS. And like she said, they had to raise funds. You had to raise funds. And, well, that was 64, actually.
Yeah, 60.
And then you raised funds. And then in January, Mabel had to come to the United States, Debbie, and do funding here, because that's how OMS worked in those days. So she ended up in Michigan, in the United States here, one of the coldest, windiest states in January you'd ever find. There's nothing ever been on the land of Northern Ireland like it. And she remarks that not only the snow, but the wind blows so much. And she learned an awful lot about America. She had her first, what do you call it, milkshake, and she learned what spaghetti is. And she had never heard of those things before. But one of the things that happened in that missionary internship course, you had counseling and help and so on. She was working in a church, and she was advised by a lady to cut her hair. She had long, long hair, and so she did in obedience to that. And I don't know if that made a difference in your life, Mabel.
No, it's not a good story.
But you're working in a predominantly United States missionary organization, and that has a lot to do with people coming in from other countries and so on. There's a cultural aspect there. And Mabel, I think, before she ever got to Ecuador, she proved to herself and to others she could work cross-culturally. She could make those adjustments that needed to be made.
Wow. Wow. So then how old were you when you were in the U.S. at this time?
To me?
Yes, Mabel. Sorry.
That was the winter and spring of 1965. So you would have been, you'd been a Christian about 8 or 9 years there.
That's right. Yeah, I think 9.
So she was probably 26, 27 in there.
Okay, wow.
27.
Those are years of preparation.
Definitely. And then, so you're in the U.S., raising funds, just getting used to the different cultural sphere that is there. And then what happened in that time? And then did you go to Ecuador straight after, or how did that work?
No, well, when I came back from America, I was part of a missionary internship. The real reason they sent me was so that I could have a chance of getting to know something about the American culture. And so that was 6 months.
And you raised funds too.
And I raised funds too at the time. And when I got back to Ireland, then fundraising seriously started. But it only took 4 months. It was quite amazing because, you never know how it's going to work. So then I was, at the end of 1965, I was ready to go to Ecuador. Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica.
Right.
And it was very hard to leave Ireland. Very difficult for me. I felt it very strongly, but the Lord called and He made me able to do it.
And you packed your chest.
Oh, yes.
A big chest. Yeah. They don't pack in those things anymore, but boy, I'll tell you, that was everything you needed.
Well, yeah. It was so little you could have gotten there. Not really so little, but just the things that you used every day. So.
Wow. What kind of things, just, I don't know, I'm a very visual person, so what kind of things were put in that chest?
On that chest, well, books, clothes. It opened up into a little suitcase, a little wardrobe.
Oh, wow.
When you opened it up, and it was a
top like that.
A man from Callenders who sent it to me, so Mabel might need something like this. So you opened it out. Everything was on hangers now, and you could just open it out. That was quite amazing.
You had that chest for years. You sent it back from Ecuador.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of chest that they had shipped abroad on boats, on ships. For years, missionaries had taken these things, and it's amazing that they sent that to you. And
wow, such a provision from the Lord.
Yes, wonderful provision.
And then from Costa Rica, where was your next stop?
Oh, then that was Ecuador.
Okay.
Wow. Costa Rica a year.
Yeah, I was in Costa Rica a year. And,
what was a prayer you prayed before you left Costa Rica?
Yeah, I prayed. You know, I always thought that someday I would get married, but I wasn't sure. And so that I prayed that God would, you know, in language school, a lot of people, young people, get together. And,
yeah, 200. There are 200
and there'd be
missionary
marriages out of that all. But I didn't see anybody there that I was really interested in. So I prayed that the Lord would give me someone, a man. And so that went by. I left Costa Rica, nobody showed up. So there was one guy that he said he would have asked me during classes, but he knew that I wouldn't respond because I'd be too busy, which was probably true. But anyway, there was no interest in that. And so we went to Ecuador and arrived in Saraguro. It was quite amazing because the first morning I went outside onto the streets. I met an Indian man, and he wanted to know if the doctor was in. And so
in Spanish, you could understand.
I understood him perfectly. They told us in language school that the accent would be different, and you might not understand it as well. But it was perfect, no problem, and I was very happy about that. After spending a year trying to learn it.
Wow.
So I worked in the clinic with the personnel there, and it was an amazing thing because the need was so very great, and there were so very few missionaries to meet the need, and but God was wonderful and kept us safe and gave us strength. And sometimes when the doctors were gone, usually one was there, but we'd have to take patients to Loja, or we would have to try and do something ourselves. And so we could do like stitching and things like that, and that always needed to be done after a fiesta. So many people got injured, and so it was to see their culture and to be accepted to some degree in that culture was very good.
Wow. It's just so amazing to hear, and praise the Lord that the small miracles of like being able to understand the language on the first day, and obviously so much hard work on your part in Costa Rica as well. So just praise the Lord.
Yes, in Costa Rica I lived with a family, and they were all Christians, and it was such a wonderful experience. I learned probably more from them than I did at the language school, really. But all was necessary to get it done.
Well, Mabel is a great learner. To this day, she keeps learning all kinds of things, like operating this computer. I don't know a thing about this. She does. And but Debbie, one thing, Mabel learned to deliver babies principally from Dr. Daus there in Saraguro. And you were working, there's another nurse there, Jean Esselman, from, she had gone through language school. She's from Scotland. She was a midwife, really.
Yeah.
And they would go out to the homes to deliver babies in those days. And that, Mabel's told me that there you are in the house, and here it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, so the baby is going to be delivered. So all of these children are in the bed. So you take out about 5 children, put them on a blanket on the floor, deliver the baby, give it to the mom, and then put the other kids back into bed. Then about daylight, you're ready to go home. And that is a very stressful kind of life because you're just working all the time. But the result of that is that there were many baby girls who were called Mabel, after Mabel. And that it just shows to me that Mabel had a great influence upon people there. Through the clinic. I don't believe we will ever realize until eternity the impact that the clinic had in those early years. The results we're seeing there today are based upon all of that work that was given so freely to the people there.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is so, I just got goosebumps as you were talking. It was just wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And Bruce, how was your journey to Ecuador? How did that look for you?
Yes. Well, the day that I became a Christian was about noon, and when God spoke to me to go and study the Bible and so on. And I did not know anything about the church. This pastor was pastoring 2 rural congregations, and he would be there on Sunday morning. But in the church bulletin, it had the pastor's address, and that was in another town about 15 miles away. So after I got the chores done on the farm that evening, I drove there and went to that house. And the pastor's wife came to the door and she said, "Well, what do we have here?" I wondered what. But I told the pastor and his wife what happened to me. And they were very pleased because in the other church they were pastoring, several young people had become Christians, but I was the first one in that congregation. And I wasn't a member there or anything. But I told them that I wanted to study the Bible. And they told me, well, there is a place called Fort Wayne Bible College, which was in Indiana, about 3 hours drive away. But I didn't have any information of how to get there or any address or anything. But I got involved right away. I joined the church, and they were having OMS missionaries come and speak in the church. And I learned so much about OMS and missions. And there were also what we called in those days revival meetings. The first one I went to it's a week-long Bible study, really, what a man is preaching and teaching the Bible. And the first one was a Friends church. And the next one was a Methodist church for a week. And those had tremendous effect upon me. And then the third one was in our church there that I had joined, and that was Edwin and Ruth Messerschmidt. She had been a missionary in Colombia with OMS, and she had been Mrs. Cowman's personal secretary for a number of years. And she had this beautiful soprano voice. And when I would go to those evening meetings, I was always last because I had to hurry so much to get there. And I'd sit in the back. But at the last meeting, they sang this song, "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, the full in His wonderful face." And then Edwin, he gave an invitation. He says, "Is there anyone here who feels a call to missions?" And I stood up in the back of the room, And that just confirming that I'm moving ahead in this understanding of missions. And then a missionary who was actually living in Saraguro invited us from the church to come there. And so 4 of us, the pastor and his wife, there was another lady, and myself, went to Ecuador. Well, we went to Colombia for 2 weeks and then Ecuador for 2 weeks. And when we were in Ecuador, we went right up to Saraguro, and that's where Mabel and I met on August 13th, 1967.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it was like a short-term team kind of situation, right?
Oh, yeah. It was a month long, and I'll tell you, to be away from a dairy farm for a month is not easy. But I was moving in that direction toward missions.
Wow, so you just met in Saraguro while you were on this team, and then what happened?
A lot of things were happening in my life. When you become a Christian, your friends change. You really find out who your friends are. And so my life was kind of in turmoil at that point. Things were changing, things were different. My family, my brother and sister and mom and dad, they were all happy what happened, but I had others, aunts, uncles, cousins, that they said, well, it'll cool down after a while and all that kind of stuff. But hearing missionaries and so on, it was quite an important time. But I was reading in the scripture where the Apostle Paul told Timothy, said, at times like this, persecution and all that, it's best that a man not be married. And I thought, wow, that's me. Leave that go. There's so many things happening. But when I was in Saraguro and Mabel was translating for one of our team members at a little chapel service, the Lord spoke to me and said, there's a girl you're going to marry. And I did not say that to her, thankfully. But anyway, the missionary, he got some high-powered rifles one day, and he was taking us deer hunting. Can you imagine this? I had a lot of guns and stuff like that. I had been selling them to buy literature to pass out. I was getting rid of my guns. I didn't want to see guns, so I walked around for about an hour, and I didn't see anything. And I went back to the car and put the gun down on the bonnet of the car. And I picked a big bouquet of wild flowers. It's at 10,000 feet. They're just very beautiful, but they're very strong and so on. They can take the wind. And I picked a big bouquet about this size.
It's huge.
And I took them back to Saraguro and I gave them to Mabel. And I cannot explain the trance I was in. I just did that. And I've told Mabel, I could have got you thrown out of the mission doing something like that. But anyway, that's where it started. And then during the next 3 years, we exchanged about 700 letters and wrote back and forth. I went to Bible college in '68, Fort Wayne, and that was a story in itself, how all that worked out. And I think one of the great blessings, Debbie, to our lives is our Bible college training. I would advise that for anyone. If you're going to be a missionary, you better know the Bible.
Wow. I am wrapping my head around everything. It's amazing just to hear the stories and just the importance, as you say, of knowing the Bible and anchoring yourself in there. So you went to Bible college. Was it those 3 years then that you were in Bible college?
I was in Bible college 2 years to 1970.
Mm-hmm.
Mabel and I married in 1970, and then we did 2 years in London Bible College in London.
Wow.
And
Okay.
Russell was born at that time. And then went back to Fort Wayne because I was in a degree program and I had to do mission courses there, which in London Bible College, there was very few missionary courses. And so then I graduated in 73 from Fort Wayne Bible College. And then Mabel and I and the children, we left in late December of 1973 for Costa Rica, where I studied Spanish language there. And Mabel did an advanced course, which was really great. You went to the seminary there, and you did courses under Jorge Taylor, who was a psychologist, and a very important meeting that we understood who this man was later on when we were in the Bible school. So, Mabel still has her certificate from the language school of a advanced Spanish course. We still have this. That's how we all got there together. It was in late December of 1974 when we arrived as a family with Russell and Glenda.
Wow. So you were in language school, and Mabel, you were doing seminary in Spanish in Costa Rica, and you had 2 children as well, and then you went to Ecuador.
Right.
Wow.
Let's get that.
Yeah, and then
wait a minute. We were all together as a family of 4.
Mm-hmm.
When we came to Ecuador.
Right. Yeah, and that language school is never easy. I remember my from language school, it's intense all morning long in 4 different classes, and the muscles on my face would actually hurt when I would come home there after lunch, and I went through quite a struggle there. One of the things in language school, you have help working in the house. It'd be a young Costa Rican girl, Christian girl, and she's helping with the house. And what was her name? Elsa. And they love to take care of girls like Glenda, But boys, they're not too much on that. But and then the language school, they would encourage you, well, have this girl eat lunch with you, and so on. Then you can keep learning Spanish. And I told Mabel, I said, listen, I am so tired of hearing Spanish. When I come home, I can't take any more. I can't do it. And then we get in contact with a lot of young people from the university there. And Mabel invited these young kids to come. They were college, university-age people to our house one evening. And here I am. I'm struggling with Spanish, and these people are just gibbering away all the time. And I just reacted. I went and I got into bed. I was reacting. I can't do this. And so there I am laying in bed, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here anyway? This isn't where I need to be. So I got up and I went back out and I struggled through it all. But there is tremendous emotional challenge to a person in learning a language when you only know one language. Here I am 30 years and that's all I've ever heard is English. But for a person like that, to learn language then is a real struggle, and you've got to fight it through. Thank God for people who grow up bilingual. That's a wonderful thing.
Wow. I mean, I admire people who learn languages. And I tell my friends, I have a lot of international friends, and I always say to them, like, how do you guys, like, some of them speak 4, 5 languages, and I'm just there like, how do you do that? And they're like, well, you're bilingual. I'm like, I'm bilingual because I had to be.
Yeah.
But I really admire just people that, sit and learn the language because it is so much work for the brain. As you say, I never even thought about that, like just facial muscles and just everything that entails.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. Like, wow. And so I think we're gonna like stop it there for this episode. I think that's a great place to stop it. Just the expectation of what's next.